Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and welcome to a special edition of Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I'm here today to talk to you about Avatar: The Last Airbender Season 3, or Book 3, depending on how you want to call it. So, the final chapter in Aang's journey. This was actually the first season I actually watched that was in production because I got into Avatar very, very, very late. And I remember when I first saw it on television, I was just kind of like, what the heck is this crap with these weird animals and stuff like that. It was only till I was on YouTube and I found like a video of like the bending and Katara like facing that waterbender master. I was like, wow, this is actually really awesome and stuff. So I started watching reruns and I was getting ready for the third season. By far, the finale of this season is the best finale of this franchise and probably the best fight finale scene I've ever seen in anything. It was just so amazing. Like, you can just watch those two episodes. All it was just fighting. It's like, okay, cool, give us that. But then, in the very last episode, the fighting, after it stopped, it went into all this, let's wrap everything up into a nice little bow type thing. So the characters can live their pleasant lives and everything. But boy, that fighting was amazing. Although, I will say, even though it was amazing, I was shocked and surprised more people didn't fight. The White Lotus, for example. Why build them up just to give them a very, very, very quick fighting scene and everything? Like all that sappy, happy stuff at the very end of the episode, they could have cut some of that. Also, what about the people in like the other nations and stuff as all this is going on? I would have liked to see them like be all like, you know what? Like, let's try to fight, but oh no, we can't because they're too powerful and them fleeing and running and stuff like that. Also, the stuff with Sokka and Toph, that was very brief. I really wanted to see Toph open up a can on all those firebenders, and it was just so quick, so brief. And with Sokka, we know he can't fight nobody during this time because he doesn't have no bending, and firebenders are very, very powerful at this time. So I wasn't expecting him to do much, but at least Toph, man, like I was disappointed in that. But there was some unexpected surprises in that finale. Azula especially. I was not expecting Azula to have a mental breakdown and everything. Like, it really shows just how wound up she is of trying to be perfect and everything. But when it comes to that of season 3, I truly feel like season 3 was the last great Avatar anything before all the sequels and like reboots and stuff came out, because Nickelodeon dropped the ball very hard with a lot of the sequels and the creators too. Like I like the creators, but even they kind of goofed up a little bit and stuff. Like when it came to that Korra series. Because we all know Nickelodeon fumbled with the first live action, Avatar movie and stuff when they whitewashed the entire cast and made all the dark skinned people like villains and stuff. And it's like, what the heck is this crap? Then came the Korra series, which at first I started to like it in season 1. But once they got into the what was it, like bending tri-tournament thing, it felt like everything got weighed down. Then when you find out how the villain was able to shut off everybody's bending, it's kind of like, really, that's the reason? I don't know, man. I was expecting something bigger and grander, but whatever. Season 2 I'm not really a fan of. Season 3 I think I am. It's one of those seasons I like. I think it is season 3. It's the one with the Red Lotus people. That's the one I like. And I think they had 4 seasons. I don't know if I really liked the 4th season, but Nickelodeon really botched that with the way they presented the show. And I put some of the blame also on the creators because they could have wrote it better, you know what I'm saying? And not only that, but nobody really asked for 100 years in the future, like, or what, however many years it was. No, not 100 years, because Aang died pretty early and stuff. But when it came to the Korra series, all us fans really wanted was an older version of the Avatar team, like older teenage like Aang or adult Aang, and follow his journeys with that. But they didn't do that. Or they could at least went into the past. Like, I want to see the stuff that happened with all the other avatars and stuff. Give them their own series. But some of this stuff has been explained, I think, in comic books, but I don't read comic books. So I don't know what the heck goes on in there. And like, and so I just feel like all those sequels and stuff just got fumbled and stuff. But when it comes also to season 3, there is one massive problem I have with this season, is that it feels like an entire season of filler. Pretty much the first 9 episodes feel like filler, but filler with an explanation to it. Filler with a purpose, but filler nevertheless. Then you get to the Day of Black Sun, and that 2-parter was really great, only for them to fail, and they have to go into hiding again. Then the rest of the episodes is once again filler, but filler with explanation. And then we get the huge battle at the very end of the series and stuff. And it's just kind of like, I tend to get kind of bored with season 3. I love the look of it. I love that the Avatar team is like wearing Fire Nation clothes. They look really good in red and gold. But the problem I have with season 3 is that it's really not what a lot of people expected. Like, it was great to show that, hey, the Fire Nation, because the Fire Nation has been built up to be this very evil nation where everybody just wants to capture everybody and kill everybody and take over their land, very much like Germany back in World War II. But just like with Germany in World War II, not everybody in their country is evil and stuff. There are those who just want to live a peaceful life with everybody else, but it's the government that sucks and everything. And that's how it is with the Fire Nation. Not everybody in the Fire Nation is bad. It's just they've been corrupted and brainwashed to think they are the best of the best, and everybody else comes second fiddle to them. And it's because of the government and stuff. So with season 3, in the first 9 episodes, we get to explore the Fire Nation and all the people and realize not everybody's a jerk and why they act the way they do. And we see the Avatar team kind of try to persuade and fix them and solve their problems and everything and make them realize that, hey, you've been living a lie. Sometimes I feel like it was done in a small scope, though, not as large as I would like. Like, I think it was important to show, like, or at least explain, not show. I wish they would have shown, but they explained pretty much what happened after the end of season 2 and how 3 months have passed and Aang has been in a coma. And when he finally wakes up, we find out, like, they found some of their friends to fight for Black Sun. They've been pretending to be a Fire Nation, like, Navy and everything from a ship they captured, only for them to be discovered in the first episode and them to split up from the rest of their group and everything. And so it's Team Avatar splitting up with everybody, splitting away from everybody else. And so it's more interpersonal episodes after that, where we get to explore not only the Fire Nation, but our main characters as well. That's great and everything, but it just felt kind of lackluster at times. Like the whole school episode with Aang teaching those kids how to dance. Yeah, it was interesting figuring out that they don't really dance and sing in the Fire Nation because they feel like it's a waste of time. And so we see Aang bringing that back to that part of the world. which, that's kind of nice because, he is supposed to save the world and he's supposed to also save the Fire Nation and stuff like that. But it's just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I've seen episodes like that before in Xena where they had that same dancing episode because a town that's not supposed to dance. And I think this might have also happened in real life in some country in the real world at some point, but I don't know. It's like I've seen it before, you know what I'm saying? I also feel like they've rushed the whole Toph like metal bending thing. Like I would have liked to see that explored more with her learning how to do it. Also, back to character development, we do get some interesting character development with our main cast. But I do feel like some things were kind of rushed, like say Toph. Toph, while she still has her edginess to her, she's a lot nicer this season. She's more kind. She's more smiley and everything. She's more friendly to like her team and everything. But then they did bring in that one episode to remind us of, yeah, she can be a butthead and stubborn as well when they had the runaway episode with her and like Katara butting heads. Once again, a throwback to the season 2 episode. That was nice to remind fans that, hey, she's not entirely all nice and everything. But like, it hasn't changed over a new leaf. She's still the same person. So that was like really cool, but it just kind of felt a little out of place because she has evolved so much since season 2. And it does make you wonder, what does she do when she's in her little earth tent and everything, when she's all pissed off and mad at people? Like, what does she think? Like, I want to know, like, I wanted to see her in there. Does she get, like, even more angrier? Does she cry? Like, does she, like, mouth off and underneath her breath? Or, like, what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm so curious to know that. And I feel like this season was a more of an improvement on Katara than that of season 2. In season 2, Katara was more laid back and just acted like a motherly figure. She didn't really have no big story arc whatsoever. But in season 3, she has like 2 really huge, well actually 3 really huge like story arcs and everything. One when it comes to blood bending, one when she wants revenge for her mother's murder, and the other one when she did the whole painted lady thing. So that was really great. And it was really cool to see Sokka like rediscover himself again, because in season 2, like I said before, he matured a lot, and in season 3 they kind of took him back to what he was in season 1. That kind of sucked because he had evolved and everything, but he learned more self-discipline in season 3 when it came to him finding a sword master and stuff. Because the thing about Sokka, while he's a capable fighter and everything, he's not exactly the most skilled fighter. Remember, Zuko whooped his behind and everything. And that's because, all the warriors in his land had to leave for war and nobody could really teach him, so he had to teach himself. But for the most part, in season 1 and 2, he fared off pretty nicely, but he would always get his butt kicked every once in a while. He was more intelligent than he was that of a fighter. So seeing him, like, learn how to use the sword properly and lead the invasion battle was really something to see. And of course, Aang had the biggest like character development of them all, because he failed in season 2 and now he feels like a failure in season 3, and he's kind of like hiding once again, and like he did like in the early beginnings and stuff when he hid for like 100 years. And so he really has to contemplate what kind of hero he's going to be and how he's going to take down the overarching main villain and everything, Lord Ozai. Because I would have assumed in season 1 and 2 he would realize he's going to have to kill that dude. But it only dawned on him just now that, hey, I'm going to have to kill this guy. And I don't do that because my religion and stuff like that. And it causes conflict between him, his friends, and the whole situation and stuff. And how he was able to defeat the Fire Lord without killing him was something very impressive. But the whole energy build bending thing, that was very, very rushed. And yeah, I know we get to see like lion turtle statues here and there, but nobody knew what the heck those were. You know what I'm saying? But once again, another big change came in that of Zuko. He is still going through that metamorphosis and everything. And he's technically a bad guy, but not really evil. But then he makes a decision that will change the course of his life forever when he decides to go against his father, go against his nation, and join Team Avatar. So for the most part, after the invasion, it felt more like a Zuko type show because he not only had to persuade Team Avatar that, hey, I'm the good guy now, but they all went on their own mini adventures with him and stuff. Aang learned how to firebend from dragons. Katara got revenge for the man, well, was going to get revenge for the man who murdered her father. And then, of course, Sokka went to go find his girlfriend who was captured. But once again, Toph is left out. She never gets to go on her mini vacations or like adventures and stuff. So that's a funny gag from like season 2. But one thing I am disappointed in this season is who exactly is the main bad guy. Yes, we know Fire Lord Ozai is the main villain, but of course he doesn't do his main villain stuff until the last episodes. So who the heck exactly is the main villain of season 3? It's kind of a season without a villain, kind of. There's combustion. What's it? I can't say it. I'm again tongue tied. Combustion. Why can't I say this? I'm getting tongue tied. I'm saying one thing, but my mind is thinking another. Combustion man. I can't say it. Exploding man. I'll just say that. I can't say the other word for some reason. But exploding dude who fire bends with his brain by just thinking of something, and like this steam comes from his head and he blows things up. That is really cool and very impressive, but how the heck does that work? And not only that, but he has a cool look. He's huge, he's big. He looks like Batista from WWE wrestling, but he has a metal arm and a metal leg. What is his backstory? There is no backstory. What is his real name? We don't know his real name. And how is he able to firebend from his brain? We do not know. It's one of those things that where the creators kind of fumbled because they wanted this really cool villain, but they really didn't know what to make of him or do with him because he kind of just pops in and pops out of the show with like no backup, no nothing, and somehow he's always able to find Team Avatar. But how is he able to track them down? So it's a huge ball drop from the creators when it came to exploding dude and everything, because they had this really cool impressive villain, but they didn't know what the heck to do with it. Then what about our villains from season 2? They get completely downgraded this season because they're not the main villains this season. They're just either barely on screen or they're just maxing and relaxing and stuff. Like Ty and Mei Lee and everything, they're barely shown, but we do see more of like them in the beach episode, which was one of the best episodes and one of the most bizarre episodes. I was not expecting that episode to go the way it did. It just kind of came out of nowhere, almost like the writers wanted to redeem our villains, which I hate when they do that, and they needed to give them something to do because they're barely in the season. So basically it's like a teen drama show with the beach episode dealing with Azula, Zuko, Mei Lee, and Tai, where it's just like they're expressing their feelings and everything and why they are the way they are. And it just came completely out of nowhere. But they had to do it because they never explained these 3 girls in season 2 and everything. They just had them show up and do lots of cool evil stuff, but they never explained who they were. Then, of course, after that, they kind of just disappear again until they're needed just to get captured and portray like Azula and stuff. Okay, so character bios. The fire-bending assassin guy who doesn't have a name. His power is extremely cool and his look is even cooler. He's missing an arm, he's missing a leg, and it's replaced by metal. But we don't know the first thing about him other than he's silent, does not speak, and he's really bad. And Zuko hired him, and when Zuko fired him, he still went after his mission and attacked Zuko. He can fire Ben from shooting, making things explode just from like looking at it and thinking about it. This is really weird and strange, and I feel like they tried too hard to make this dude look all big and bad and powerful when you don't even know how his power is like used and stuff. I wish this would have been a one and done fluke, but then they brought back this same bending power for the Legend of Korra at one point in time. And he's a very underdeveloped character, and it just does not work for me for season 3. May. So now it is fully established that her and Zuko really are a boyfriend and girlfriend and that they liked each other for the longest time. She's still her moody self with no emotions, but we find out a little bit why she's like that. For 15 years, she was an only child, and when she was forced to basically just stay like silent, sit still, and not do nothing. She had to be perfect and everything because of her family's political career. She was only allowed to speak when spoken to. Somehow, this drained her of her emotions because she felt like really sad and like, like it just caused her to just like, not have any emotions. But then we see that like she tends to lash out a little bit towards Azula. She seems to be the only person who's not afraid of her. Then when Zuko gets captured and everything after he dumped her, she was furious but still helped him escape, attacking Azula and everything. Ty Lee. So just like with May, she gets some much needed character development and a backstory. It turns out she has 6 other sisters and everything, or 5 other sisters. So she's like a quintuplet and stuff. And so she decided to leave the Fire Nation and her family to go to the circus because she got tired of looking like her sisters and she wanted to be different and on her own. This is why she walks on her hands. This is why she's so happy and cheerful and everything. And so like we also learn that like guys love her and she loves flirting with guys. And it gives her the much needed attention that she wants and everything, and also to be different from that of her family. And so, like, there's not really much about her this season. She's just kind of not there, along with the trio and the female trio. And so she really only appears in that beach episode, and then the episode when it's found out that Zuko and what's his name, Sokka, are at the prison and May is there. So she's hoping Azula fight them off and everything. But then all of a sudden she witnessed May betrayed Azula to help Zuko get free. So as Azula is either about to firebend at May or strike her down with lightning and May's about to throw a dagger, Ty Lee gets so scared that like she just pressure points Azula, shutting off her chi, and tells May we gotta get the heck on out of here because she knows that Azula's gonna go buck wild and just kill the crap out of May. But the guards stopped them, and so they're taking prison after that. And we don't get to see them no more to the very end of the show when they're later set free by Zuko. And it turns out that Ty Lee's gonna join the the Kyoshi warriors. And basically they bonded in prison and she taught them how to use pressure points. This will come back in the Legend of Korra when there are Chiba blockers and stuff. Hama, the puppet master. Hama is that of a bloodbender, the first one we ever meet. And so she's this extremely old woman who lives in the Fire Nation. And so she lets the kids stay with her and everything when she discovers that Katara is a waterbender. Katara's all happy and wants to spend lots of time with her. And it turns out she came from that of Sokka and Katara's water tribe. That she knew Katara and them grandmother. So in this episode, a lot of people started disappearing at night. And so they don't like to be on the streets at night during a full moon of all times. And so it took a while to figure out what the heck is going on. Until you start to see Hama tell her backstory of how they was taken, how they all fought, but then eventually she was the last waterbender to be captured because Katara was not born yet. And so that's where she stayed in prison. But how exactly did she escape? Well, because they were pumping dry air through the ventilation system before they would give them water and stuff like that, they had nothing to bend with because they was tired, exhausted, and barely had any food to eat. But then she realized something. Blood is liquid, so she started to bend the blood in rats whenever there was a full moon. And as the years passed by and there was another full moon, she would perfect it until she was ready to try it out on people, which she is able to. And she basically contorts people's bodies and control their limbs. It's a very freaky thing, and this is something a horror movie should be made out of. So anyways, she's telling Katara this, and as she's telling her this story, Aang and the other ones are learning from prisoners about an old woman who controlled their limbs. And Sokka never trusted her to begin with. And so, she basically taught Katara that you can take water from anything, even plants and trees and stuff like that. And it's a very chilling episode because her and Katara, they water bend and fight each other. But then Hama starts to blood bend Aang and that Sokka. And so Katara has no choice as she's taking water. And it's weird because, you see Katara, she's taking water from plants, water from trees. So in essence, Katara is killing vegetation life. But then she decides to blood bend Hama after learning the technique from her. And so as Toph come back with the prisoners and guards and stuff, they take Hama away and we don't know what happens to her after that. But she's laughing and smiling, cackling, talking about congratulations, Katara, you're a bloodbender now. And Katara is just crying her eyes out because she reached inside somebody's body and controlled them through their blood, their life force. And that freaked her out. And Tress, I forget Tress's last name, Max something. She's the, is it McNeil? It's something. She's the voice of Babs Bunny from Tiny Toons and Dot from Animaniacs. I recognize that voice from anywhere. Just like with the other female trio, Azula shows up, but she shows up sparingly and everything. And we learn in the beach episode that she hates her mother to death, along with Zuko and everything. And she hates her because her mom thinks she's just a monster and mean, which she admits that she is. It was interesting to see Azula have a crush on a guy. This is something we've never seen before in the but it happened in the beach episode. But, things don't work out because he has no idea who she is. who any of them are. Like, you think he would recognize Zuko because of the scar. That scar is legendary, but I guess in that part of the Fire Nation, they haven't heard of it. So she pretty much wrecks his home and stuff like that. But it is fascinating to see somebody with such a cold heart want to fall in love with somebody. But then again, her father did, you know? And so basically, we'll see her fight the gang every once in a while. Like during the invasion, since she already knew about it, she had the Dai agents fight, like, you know, Team Avatar. And she informed Sokka that she kidnapped Suki. And so to distract him long enough for like the eclipse to be over so they can fight like her father. And of course they don't want to do that because he'll be too powerful. And she's still her very cunning self. She still thinks like two steps ahead. When she finds out Zuko is at the prison, she goes there. And of course, you know, her and May don't get along. But afterwards, she finds their hideout and she basically destroys part of the Western Air Temple or the Southern Air Temple. I can't remember which is which. And so, like, we don't really see her that much after that. But then towards the end of the series, Fire Lord tells her, well, first, you know, she came up with a plan to destroy the Earth Kingdom doing the comet and everything because, you know, Ozai has no idea how he's going to conquer the Earth Kingdom because they've tried for like 100 years and have never been able to do it. And so, like, Zuko said, you know, they're strong-willed and they won't go down without a fight. So Azula's all like, well, when the comet comes, let's just burn them all to a cinder and everything. And then, you know, rebuild the Earth Kingdom. So she's willing to commit genocide. And so Ozai's like, all right, fine. And so, but he won't let her come with him and everything. And she's furious because that's her plan. And we see her badmouth her dad and argue with him. And I'm just like, oh, crap. This dude is like Voldemort. What the heck is he going to do to her? Because he burnt Zuko. And his patience are going thin with her. But he informs her, because that's his favorite, that he wants her to be the new Fire Lord. And he's going to be the Phoenix King. So this is when we start to see her unravel. She wants everything to be perfect at her coronation. But of course, she's not planning it. Other people are. Therefore, it's not perfect and she starts to snap. She starts to banish everybody. Her guards, the Dai agents, one of those twins and everything. Like, she is literally snapping. So Zuko challenges her to an Agni Kai. Doing the comment. It is some of the most beautiful fire bending I've ever seen. The fire doesn't even look like fire. It just looks like smokes of marshmallows and everything. And because their powers are intensified, her flames stay blue instead of turning orange. Because, you know, normally when she fire bends, it comes out blue, but then quickly it turns orange. Because it burns hot coming out and then it dissipates after a while. But since she's intensified, supercharged, it's blue the entire time. And I'm so glad it is because it's a nice contrast between the orange of Zuko's. And Zuko finally does it. He finally defeats his sister. And I'm like, holy crap, he actually did it. Only for her to be sneaky and underhanded, about to shoot him with lightning, but sees Katara and decides to shoot Katara with lightning, only for Zuko to like jump in and take the blunt of the lightning. After that, she legit snaps. Now, when she snapped before, she chopped some of her bangs off and everything, and her hair, only to hallucinate about her mother, and all her feelings and rage about her mother finally came out and everything, because she really didn't want it to come out during the beach episode. And she just broke down in like tears because the idea of her mom loving her is the worst punishment and pain she could ever face and everything. And so as she snapped and just shooting the crap out of Katara with lightning, Katara is able to beat her. I'm like, how? And everything. I guess one reason is because she's not, Azula's not really thinking. So Katara does this really cool water move and chain Azula up. You know, it's weird. The Fire Nation used the comet to massacre the entire air nomads because they were supercharged. Yet, during the second comet, earthbenders, waterbenders, people who can't bend are able to defeat them. I'm like, how? When the air nomads and the airbenders couldn't do it. Fire Lord, later Phoenix King Ozai. So finally, we get to see and hear more from the big bad, the person who is the overarching like villain of the series. Because before we used to see him in silhouette, and like we will briefly hear his voice but never see him. They always kept him hidden. And when we finally get to see him, he looks like just an ordinary man, and a young one at that. He doesn't look old enough to be a father. And honestly, because he's always sitting so regal, he doesn't look all that intimidating until you start seeing him looking pissed off. He's kind of like a Voldemort situation to where you always hear all this bad stuff he's done, but you never get to see it. But unlike Voldemort, he doesn't look intimidating, but he is in the sound of his voice. However, he is evil enough to want to burn and always try to kill Zuko. But even during the invasion, he hid in a bunker and let Azula face like the Avatar and everybody else when she had no bending. And so even when he's talking to like his generals and stuff like that, he just seems so calm and collective, but he never seems intimidating. And so it's only in the final battle where even when he even shouts at Azula, he's still not intimidating, really, like a little bit, but not really. But only in the final battle, he's when he firebends, he is intense and relentless and everything. But when Aang went into the Avatar state, he literally fled and everything. Azula is a heck of a lot more scarier than this dude. So I do feel like they kind of dropped the ball just a tad bit on him because he never seemed scary enough. And so Ozai is voiced by voice acting legend and Star Wars phenomenal legend Mark Hamill. He played Luke Skywalker. He was the Joker and the Batman stuff. I mean, this dude is legendary. Zuko's mom, she still doesn't physically appear in this show, but we do get a little bit more as to what happened to her and stuff. She is possibly alive, but we know she is because of the comics. And so we know that Zuko tried to impress his grandfather, and he made a fool of himself. Well, his grandfather was not happy about that, and his grandfather wanted him to, I think, kill Zuko because Zuko was such a failure at everything. And Azula was just like the prodigy. So when Zuko's mother heard about this, she talked it over with Ozai to arrange somewhat of a coup. He said she did most treasonous things that night, and because of that, she had to be punished when he was made the new Fire Lord. And he banished her because he just couldn't kill her and everything because that was his wife, and at one point in time, he really did love her. And so we know that Azula hates her mom because her mom thinks she's a monster and everything. And so the treasonous thing she did was most likely poison that of the original Fire Lord. And so, like, it turns out in the comics, I believe she's lost her memory and started over with a new family, I believe. The Order of the White Lotus, something that's been foreshadowed ever since season one. And so we know Iroh is part of this organization. It's an organization of like earthbenders, some firebenders, warriors who fight with just weapons. And, like they all come together for a special occasion to help stop like a great evil. Once Iroh knew of the comet, he summoned that of the White Lotus and stuff. We see John John from season one, who was a firebending master. We see Boomy and everything. He escaped from his prison, or as he said it, the Fire Nation escaped from his kingdom and everything. When he saw the eclipse, he went into beast mode and just like wreaked havoc on everything Fire Nation. And so, like, we also see Sokka Swordmaster there. And basically, they're just a bunch of like older men. They fight during the comet. We do get to see them use their skill, and it's very impressive. I wish we could have saw more, but what we got was nice enough. Iroh. So because Mako passed away, he was replaced, and his new voice actor really does sound a lot like him, but only for the last couple of last episodes. In the beginning, he kind of doesn't. So because of that, they limited like what he could say and what he could do this season. Basically, you saw him in prison, and like you saw him reveal to Zuko the lineage of how he's related to Avatar Roku and stuff. Other than that, you see him training and getting muscular. And not only that, but like act like a buffoon whenever the guards would come around. During the eclipse, he busted himself out, but we don't get to see it. And then we don't see him for the rest of the season until the end when he summoned that of the White Lotus to, attack during that Sozin's comet. After that, he gives some advice and tells that he plans on reopening his tea shop when the war is like over. Now in the Legend of Korra, we know that like before he passed, he entered the spirit world where he just lives in like peace and tranquility and everything. Peon Zhao. So he is Sokka's sword master, and he's willing to teach Sokka the way of the sword. He is also a secret member of the White Lotus Society. And he can tell that Sokka is not Fire Nation and that he's Water Tribe due to his name. That's something I've always wondered. Like when they are incognito and stuff like that, how do people not know what nation they are from? I kind of get that the Earth Kingdom and Fire Nation all look very similar. And, for the most part, Aang can kind of blend in if he put like a hat on his head because they all have the same skin complexion. But the Water Tribe people are indigenous and not Asian, so they have a lot more darker skin. I never figured out how people in the Fire Nation could never figure out who they are. And when the live action series comes, it's gonna be really hard for Katara and Sokka to like blend in, especially Katara because she has darker skin. But I don't know what they're gonna do. But anyways, he's a renowned sword like master, and he makes his own swords, and he used to train people, but now he stopped. But he's willing to train Sokka for whatever reason. And of course, when he teaches Sokka, Sokka just goofs around. But then he tests Sokka similar to how Zuko tested Aang with firebending. He just straight up attacked like Sokka. And like Sokka remembered everything that he learned, even though it seemed like he didn't and everything. And so, he was a really cool like teacher. his appearance is based on the stunt choreographer for the show. And so I don't know if I don't know if the cartoon character is supposed to be blackish looking or what, because if so, he's the only black person in this entire universe. But like he's probably just like an Asian person with a tan skin. And that was cool. They finally incorporated that dude into the show because he's been creating all the fighting styles and all the bending since season one. Avatar Roku. We finally get to know some stuff about this dude, which is awesome and stuff. And so, like, we get like an entire episode dedicated him in flashbacks. Directed Zuko to find like a scroll. And as he started reading it, he started to learn about the relationship of the Avatar and that of the Fire Lord. And at this same time, the spirit of Roku took Aang on a spirit quest type thing to learn more about what happened between him and the original Fire Lord, Sozin. And so we learned that, him and Fire Lord or Prince Sozin was like really, really good friends and everything. But then Roku was destined to be the Avatar, so he had to leave and learn how to train. He was a bit of like a goofy guy and everything when he trained. He wasn't that serious, stern, wise person he used to be back in the day. This is probably what the live action show saw, that he was goofy when he was younger and decided to make him goofy as he got older. I hate that. Anyway, so when he went back home, like he got married and stuff like that. And now his friend is now Fire Lord. And his friend was all like, you know what? We should conquer the entire world and make the entire world a Fire Nation. And since you're the Avatar, you can help make me do that. And so Roku lets them know that, look, man, the four nations need to stay exactly that. Four separate nations. We should not combine them and everything. So they had like a battle or a skirmish or whatever. And Roku spared his life. And it's cool to see Roku do his Avatar stuff because he's highly skilled. Like, he doesn't have to use rage, he uses finesse. And so his home is near a volcano and it erupted. He basically bent the crap out of the steam and like the lava and all kind of stuff to help the people survive that live on his island called Roku Island and everything. And so, but it was too much for him to handle. And then all of a sudden, the Fire Lord decided to help him out. Even after that skirmish, that was his best friend and he was going to help them. This was a really cool scene because we get to see them firebend in a very sophisticated, advanced kind of way. Where Fire Lord was able just to take the steam from the volcano and shoot it in the air, redirecting it just like lightning and everything. But then tragedy hit. Roku inhaled too much smoke and was quickly about to die. Sozin let him die, talking about, if you're dead, then I can take over the world and everything because there's nothing to stop me. So he let him die. And then Roku's dragon wrapped around his body and then boom, he died and everything. It was so sad and so tragic to see that happen. But I was so glad we got to get an episode of this dude. Seriously, they should have created a mini series with all the past avatars, the last four. That would have been so special. But Nickelodeon and the creators dropped the ball on that. Suki, I'm so glad they added her towards the end of the series to be part of Team Avatar. I like Suki. She's cool and everything. Plus, she's voiced by Jenny Kwan. Jenny Kwan is best known for playing, I forget her name, but she was on California Dreams back in the early 90s or mid 90s and stuff. California Dreams was a good show. And so we get to see some of her fighting skills and how good she is. It turns out in the comics, Azula tortured the crap out of her and broke her for the most part. And Azula kept telling her how Sokka's never gonna come and rescue you and stuff like that. And so this is where we find her like in the prison because Sokka is there trying to rescue his father. But he finds Suki instead. And so eventually, he's waiting for his father, but realize they have to go because, their plan, they only have like a short time window. But then the father shows up and it kind of derails their plan. And so this prisoner was going to help them escape, but he wanted to bring his best friend and girlfriend along. Well, when the prisoner and the girlfriend and his friend escaped alone, they made too much loud noise out in the hot boiling water and got recaptured. So basically, when all the craziness happened and they had to like break out, Suki had to go get the jail warden. And so she basically does a bunch of flips and climbs up a wall Spider-Man style. I don't understand this at all this season. It's her and Zuko. They can both climb on walls like Spider-Man. They can run on walls like Spider-Man. But they're normal people. I don't understand why this got introduced in season 3, but it makes them look too superior. And so basically she joins Team Avatar and she's just kind of there asking questions, not really doing much. She was about to have some boom boom time with Sokka, which is gross because they're both teenagers, and I can't believe they were about to show that in the cartoon. And then, like, what is it? She does help out in a big way during the final battle. I'm glad they gave her time to shine, because like during the final battle, like she's like helping, and then she falls off the airship and onto like another airship, and you think she's either dead or something like that. Then when Sokka and Toph are literally about to die, she comes in at the like last second to save their behind with a huge smile on her face, basically just riding on the outside of the plane or the blimp and playing around with the rotors and everything, hanging on the rope. It's like so cool and stuff. Toph. Toph is a little bit more different this season. She's actually nice and somewhat polite. She has evolved so much from season 2. She's no longer really shouting at people. She isn't even really all that rude to people. Like, she's actually very pleasant. Also, the voice actress, her voice is starting to get like a bit more mature and stuff like that. And so you can hear the different tone in her voice. And so in this season, she doesn't really have a story arc. She's just kind of there along for the ride and to help the gang out whatever they need. So she metal bends whenever they need, like to make a key and this and that. And so they do remind us a little bit of what she was like in season 2 by having her get into like another argument with Qatar. And so basically she is the blind bandit. The gang needs money, they need supplies, they need food. So she's all like, how we can get it? We can scam people. I can use my blindness to like, trick these people and then win tons of money. When did she start doing this in the Earth Kingdom? Before she met Aang and them, I have no idea. But she uses earthbending, to do what she does, the griff and everything. And so, like, she gets tons of money. The gang's happy. And the gang, they're along for, like, the scam. Even Aang is scamming people. And he's the Avatar and an air nomad. But when Sokka does it, he's funny and hilarious. And so, but Qatar, she don't like it at all. And so it causes her and Toph to kind of get, like, a little, like, pissy towards each other. And so it takes like Sokka to talk to Toph and tell her, to lighten up and all this other stuff, and how Katara is like a mother figure to us all. And even Toph kind of likes when Katara is a mother, because she's all like, Katara likes her more than her actual mother, or treats her better. And we find out that Toph actually really does misses her family and everything, even to the point where she writes them like a letter. But we don't know if they ever got the letter or not, because we never see them again. And so, her and Katara are gonna like pull off a scam, but the assassin is on their trail and tricks them and imprison them in wood. And this is where Katara learns to water bend her sweat and everything. And so basically after that, she's just there to help along, like I said, whatever they need and stuff. And she's actually the one who causes the gang to accept Zuko into their group, because Aang needs a firebending master and they're acting stupid because they don't want to. Okay, I mean, there's a good reason why they don't want him there, but they all like, you need him because who else are you going to find and everything? And so, during the final battle, well, he burns her feet by mistake. But anyway, during the final battle, I wish they could have done more with her, but they didn't for some reason. And they did use her a lot during the invasion. But during the final battle, she just puts on a suit of armor. She metal bends it around her, and she takes out a couple of guards, and that's really about it. And then during the final battle, even though she can see on the airship because it's made of metal, Sokka, he still, for whatever reason, is concerned about her and grabs her by the hand and is constantly running with her, even though she can do it on her own and she's very independent. But it does show that he does care for her because he knows she has a crush on him. And he knows that it's a good possibility they are gonna die because it's Sozin's comet and the firebender's firebending is intensified. So he has her bend the router and they crash into a bunch of ships. But then, as they're falling and everything, they're literally about to die. He's about to drop her thousands of feet in the air until Suki's able to save them. Now, she does perfect sand bending off screen and she shows us. It would have been nice to see her struggle with it and her practice with it, but you know how the show is sometimes. And so I don't know when I'm ever going to talk about the legend of Korra. So I'll just say now she has two kids. She teaches people how to metal bend. She has her own police force. And when she got old, she just decided to go live off in the woods and in search of enlightenment and everything. And she helps the new avatar get out her funk. She still wears her same clothes from like season two, when she's older, the exact same outfit, which is weird. But it's a nod to her original outfit. Now, in season three, she does wear firebender clothes, and I actually like her firebender clothes a heck of a lot more than her earthbending clothes. Sokka, he's a little bit in between of what he was in season one and season two. I guess because this is the last season, they wanted to harper back to his more goofier side in season one, but keep him manly like he was in season two, planning out the invasion and stuff like that. We really don't get to see too much of his tactical side in season three. But we do get to see enough of it. He is still planning out the invasion and stuff like that. And he even gets to lead the invasion, but you can see he's very nervous about speaking in front of other people to where his dad takes over. It's only when his dad gets hurt that he finished the mission and with the invasion. But of course, Azula was 10 steps ahead of him and planned everything out to avoid the invasion and stuff. His biggest story arc comes in that of him gaining his sword. Basically, he feels inferior because he can't bend and everybody else can. This is something really interesting because you never get to see how ordinary people feel about benders and stuff. And so when a meteor hits and everything, he goes to like the greatest swordsman there is and learns how to like, fight properly with the sword. Because he is a skilled fighter, but he's truly not 100% trained. He's mostly had to train himself because all the warriors in his village had to leave early when he was young. And it's there he's supposed to learn discipline and all this and that, but he does it in his goofy manner to where I don't understand how or why the sword master just didn't shoot him away and everything. And like, I don't know, it's just weird because it's kind of like, how did he learn anything? But I guess he did in his own little goofy little headed way. And he has a really cool sword with a black blade to it. He also later gains like a hawk, but he loses it in the same episode when he sends Toph parents like a letter. He's the one who's actually keeping everybody together. Normally that's Katara's job, but he's the one doing it. He smoothed over the rift between Katara and Toph, and he has to talk a little sense into Aang because Aang doesn't want to kill the Fire Lord. But then his second biggest story arc comes in that of him realizing that, the invasion failed and all the fighters in the invasion was in prison except for that of the kids. So he feels like a huge failure, but he wants to make it up by rescuing his father. And so this is when he goes to the boiling rock to like find if his father has been taken captive, but only finds Suki there. And so, while still there, he's not really planning everything out fully. For him, it's a one-way mission. And if it was a one-way mission, then I guess it was just to reunite with his father and I guess be in prison with his father and stuff. But Zuko has to talk some sense into him and stuff. But once he sees like, Suki is there, he regains his composure and wants to fight another day. And so we see him in the final battle still being as goofy as ever, but it's taking out plenty of airships, and also he cleverly gets rid of the crew of the airship he steals by some stupid thing of like, it's somebody's birthday, we're gonna celebrate outside, and so he just like, flips the ship over and they fall out. But he does like, have his manly moment in the invasion, not invasion, but the final battle by like protecting Toph because she should be able to see on that ship. But I guess when they're on top of like, the balloon part, she can't see. So like he's always holding her hand, and when stuff is falling down, he jumps on top of her to take the blunt of like the stuff. He breaks his leg. And in his final moments, he just takes his sword and just chucks it at like a soldier, breaking a huge metal, like, scaffolding he's like standing on, losing that of like, his space sword, because it came from that of a meteorite that he used to make the blade. Suki saves the day after he uses boomerang to just take out some dudes and everything. But luckily, his boomerang does come back. As for what happened to him in The Legend of Korra, I'm not 100% sure. It's been a long time since I watched that series, and I don't remember what they said happened to him. All I know is that we never see him in the future day. Most likely, he probably died or something. Katara, she is the most different this season than she's ever been before. They finally gave her something to do after sidelining her in season 2. In this season, we will never ever see her wear her traditional hairstyle like she did in the other season, unless it's a flashback. Now she has a more Fire Nation type hairstyle, which is really lovely. Like, you never really realize just how much hair she actually has, and it's a lot. Similar to that of Toph. Toph has a lot of hair. And then she has a secondary hairstyle that's more Water Nation tribe-ish, but not in her ponytail. It's more like loosely down and just pent backwards and stuff. But Katara is a changed person. Oh, wait, we do get to see her traditional hairstyle in the first episode, I forget, of this season. So that's the only time you'll get to see it, and after that, you'll never see it again. And so, like, her Fire Nation clothes are really nice. But I do feel like they tried to sexualize both her and Toph a little bit in season 3 by making, because she looks more like Princess Jasmine this season as opposed to Toph, who's technically wearing a tube top. And if she doesn't wear her vest, then she's all of her like shoulder area is like a and cleavage area is like exposed. But Katara does look like Princess Jasmine when Princess Jasmine was at the end of the first movie and she had to wear that red outfit. And so, like, Katara this season is dark. She's pissed off and she's just angry at everything. And so, like, when we first see her and she helped bring Aang back to life, she's pissed at her dad. I'm not 100% sure exactly why she's pissed off at her dad, but she's pissed off at her dad. Something happened in between seasons 2 and 3, but it's not fully 100% explained. And whenever Aang keeps asking, why are you mad at your dad? She gets furious talking about she's not mad at him, but clearly she is pissed off at him. And so, like, after that, like I said, her and Toph kind of got into it, but then her and Sokka kind of got into it as well. They go to a village that's very, very poor in the Fire Nation, which is shocking and odd because you would never suspect that there would be a poor area of the Fire Nation. But the soldiers that surround that city make their life miserable. Their water is polluted, and there's a huge factory that puts in pollution in the water. Their fish have like 2 heads because of the pollution and stuff. So after hearing like this myth about the painted lady, Katara does something very unexpected. She kind of plays the role of a hero. She's pretending to be the painted lady at night by covering herself up in like, clothes and makeup and stuff like that. And she uses her water bending power to do like heroic stuff and like, clean up the water or like get rid of the soldiers by getting rid of that factory. This causes the soldiers to be pissed and now they blame the villagers. Sokka is pissed because he told her like we shouldn't even be here, this isn't our conflict, and screw these people, they're Fire Nation and stuff. But she's adamant about like, wanting to help anybody and everybody. So with some help with Aang and pretending to be like a big spirit and everything, she takes them all out along with him while he's hiding, hitting his like, airbending stuff. Only for her to reveal herself to the villagers and stuff. But they don't rat her out because they're thankful that, she helped like they're part of like the village. And that was really cool of her. It's only really towards like the invasion that she's starting to lighten up a little bit. Like, she kind of forgives her father, whatever reason she was pissed off at him about. And when the invasion fails, she's sad that she's now separated from her father and stuff. She feels like the Fire Nation's just taking her entire family away. And so when Zuko shows up, she literally is about to shoot fire from the top of her head. She does not want him there. But then after the gang decided it's best for him to stay there, she gives him a stern warning talking about if you do anything bad to Aang, even if it's like a split second, she will take him out. And it's kind of like, whoa, she's about to turn into a murderer. Because by this time, she's already learned blood bending and stuff. And so afterwards, when Sokka brings back their dad, after he frees them from that prison, Azula wrecks the temple and the dad has to flee with all the other young survivors and stuff, leaving Team Avatar there. So she's pissed off and furious again. Because once again, the Fire Nation has separated her from like her family. But she takes all that out on Zuko for him to find out what the heck happened to her back in the day. And we get to find out, the day her mother died. About how her mother hid her from like the Fire Nation, and her mother pretended to be a waterbender, assuming they would capture her and imprison her. But the general decided to just execute her right then and there. And when Katara returned, her mother was gone. Now, this is different in the live action series because in that version, Katara actually witnessed her mom being burnt to death. And so, like, Zuko decides, all right, I'm going to help you get revenge on the man who took your mom from you. So they dress up as ninjas, and as much as Aang is trying his best to prevent this, she goes anyway. And she goes with no sleep, and just like she's just like bent on wanting to execute this dude. So when they get to the ship where she assumes this is the general, she uses her blood bending on him. And this freaks Zuko out because he didn't know she could do it, but then he just kind of like, screw it, whatever. But then now he knows for a fact what she's gonna do to him if he screws up. And so like, but it's not the guy who killed like, her dad. So she finds the dude who killed her dad. And he's an old retired general, somewhere like in his 50s or 60s, living with his mom. And he's living a miserable life. And she's legit about to execute him, but she doesn't use blood bending. She's just going to use water and ice to stab him, but realizes that like his life is miserable enough and killing him won't bring her mom back. So she leaves him be. I kind of wanted to see her execute this dude, but that would be completely against what she is, and so like that would betray everything that she is. So I guess it's best, and of course the cartoon can't show it, but in the live action show, I kind of want her to take this dude out. So here's fingers crossed and everything. But then after that, like she's pretty much just now calm and everything. She's no longer angry and she's no longer pissed off, but she has forgiven Zuko. So in the final battle, she fights Azula. Because once Zuko's able to take Azula down, Azula tricks him, and then like it's just Katara. And you're worried because it's kind of like, how much water does she have? Well, because of plot armor, she's able to find like an underwater like type of sewer system, and she's able to use as much water as she can, and literally freezes both herself and Azula before Azula can hit her with any kind of blast. It's from there, she does the coolest thing. She uses the steam from like her nose and mouth to like defrost the ice around her as she's swimming around Azula, tying her up with a metal chain, strong enough to where she can't firebend from her hands. She can still use her feet, but she doesn't for whatever reason. But instead, Azula just shoots fire out her mouth. At this point, she has truly gone insane, being defeated not only by her brother, but also by that of a waterbender. And then after this, her and Aang kiss, and then in the future, they marry and have 3 kids. She's actually, other than Toph, she's the only living member of like her gang and everything. Fire Lord Zuko. So this dude really went through like a emotional change this season. At first, he's still the hot-headed little prince that he always is because he betrayed his uncle and he feels guilty about that. He know he lied to his father, but his father ever found out the truth, he worries and doesn't understand why Azula lied for him. It's only because once the father finds out, she wants to see her dad take out his frustration out on Zuko. The beach episode really shed some light about how he felt about what he did to Iroh. He's worried that Iroh hates him because Iroh's been the only real father to him other than his dad, because his dad never has been. So after Iroh tricked him to go into like a temple and reading about his ancestor, it turns out that Zuko's great grandfather is Avatar Roku. So yes, Roku is the great grandfather of that of Zuko and stuff. That's just insane. And so, like, it's there. Iroh tells him, you must take your rightful place as, like, Fire Lord over Azula and over your father. And he gives him that of Roku's headpiece that belonged to his other great grandfather, Sozin. And so is then and there, Zuko finally becomes the person we've always wanted him to be. He leaves a letter for May, and then he goes to tell his father he's leaving and stuff. But right before that, he tells his father, "You gonna tell me where my mom is and stuff." And he actually threatened his father and all this and that. But his father pretty much just like, distracted him long enough for the firebending to stop and shot lightning at Zuko. He's just straight up just wants to kill his son. Only for Zuko to finally learn how to redirect lightning. But he doesn't kill his father. Instead, he just escapes. And he follows that of like the Avatar and his friends after the invasion failed. It's from then and there, his personality and tone of voice completely changes. He's like really, really nice. And the only person he ever shouts at is himself, or like Aang, and when Aang starts to act like his stupid kitty little self again. But like he's trying his extreme best to like win them over, but they don't want to because of all the bad stuff he did. But Toph is the only person who's willing to give him a chance, only to when he gets like, he thinks she ambushed him and he burnt her feet by like mistake because he thought like, a stranger was coming at him. But it takes a good long while, and especially for him to try to like fight off the assassin, only for them to forgive him, except for Katara, of course. After that, he goes on many adventures or field trips, if you will, with that of like Team Avatar, except for Toph. She always gets left out. And so him and Aang have to learn like a new form of firebending because after he got rid of his rage and anger, he couldn't firebend no more. So he had to learn a new way from the original firebenders. Only problem is, all the dragons have been hunted down and destroyed. Iroh was said to have killed the last dragon. And so hunting down and killing the dragon is like a great thing and a great honor and shows just how strong of a firebender you are and everything. So him and Aang go to this ancient temple of like the sun gods or something like that, only to find out that there are people still living there. And so like these people are firebenders who dress very tribal and stuff. And they have detached themselves from the rest of the Fire Nation and live in peace and tranquility and everything. This is really fascinating because it just shows more that not everybody in the Fire Nation is evil. And they reveal that there are still 2 dragons left. Iroh lied and let them live. And so, after him and Aang go through like all these tests and everything, they learn a new way of firebending. Because firebending didn't used to be forceful back in the day. It didn't used to be fueled by anger and everything. That later happened after their entire kingdom just deteriorated and went like, into like, dictatorship and everything. And so, like, after that, he helps that of Sokka, like, rescue Suki and his dad. He helps Katara, like, um, find the dude who killed her mom. And then after that, he tries to help look for Aang, but he takes them to the Earth Kingdom to where June, or whatever her name was, and found Iroh and stuff. And that's where they found the White Lotus. After that, he has to fight Azula. And he feels like, I'm ready because there's something off in her head and everything, knowing that she's a better firebender than him. And like I said before, their battle was beautiful looking and stuff. And he was able to defeat her. It's like this dude has finally become the person we've always wanted him to be. Only for her to like trick him, and then he gets blasted by lightning. After that, he's taken out for the rest of the battle. And after Katara defeats her, he takes his rightful place as Fire Lord. He frees everybody from the prison, well, the non-criminals and stuff. Like, like the people from the invasion, his girlfriend, Ty Lee, all of them. And so he said him and Aang are going to work on rebuilding the world after the Fire Nation tried to destroy it all. Avatar Aang. So, Aang has actually disappointed me a lot this season. See, he has a lot of grief and a lot of fear this season, and because of that, it reverts him back to a little bit of how we saw him in season 1. He's very juvenile and everything. Like, he's still goofing around and not taking things very seriously because he failed, but he's gonna fail multiple times this season, and it really gets to him. You gotta remember, he is technically 112 years old, but still a 12-year-old in the 112-year-old in the body of a 12-year-old, and so like that's a lot of pressure for him, for somebody who was not trained properly how to be an avatar. The grief he feels is that he failed in Ba Sing Se. The Earth Kingdom has now fallen, and like he died. And not only did he die, but he's supposed to defeat the Fire Lord, but he gets taken out by the Fire Lord's daughter. So if he can't even defeat the princess, how is he ever going to defeat the Fire Lord? So this weighs on his mind the entire season. When he wakes up, he's freaked out because he know he died and he has hair. It's funny seeing him have hair, but it's also cool. I like seeing him with hair. It's cool, but he hates it because he likes his bald head and wants to show his arrow off proudly and stuff. But, when Kantara and all the rest of them are trying their best to keep him still and hidden because the whole world thinks he's dead, and that right there is their hidden gem in the defeating the Fire Lord. If everybody thinks he's dead, then they won't go looking for them, as they're on like a stolen, fire ship and stuff. But Aang is being a stubborn child and decides to leave anyway, fly off into the middle of the night, where he nearly almost dies and trying to take out a Fire Nation ship and stuff. So anyway, as he almost drowns at night, it is now the new moon spirit and everything who helps guide him on his way back and everything. And Yue, we get to see a little bit of a glimpse of her. So that's kind of cool and everything. After that, he settles his behind down and he gets some Fire Nation clothes, which I really like, but they're school clothes, school uniforms. So he is mistaken for a student who is skipping school. So this is when he starts teaching all those kids how to dance. But then he learns a lot about the Fire Nation. And he tries to correct the teaching and stuff about how things were 100 years ago, because they have now rewritten history, sound familiar? To benefit their needs and everything in their agenda. So he clashes with all the teachers and stuff, but this is really a learning moment for the kids and some of the adults who don't want to believe it. I find this to be a tedious episode, a very boring episode. I could care less about him teaching kids there's more to life than just being stern and angry and this and that. I get it. You have to teach the younger generation, but this was still kind of like a boring episode. I've seen it a million times before, especially with the dancing stuff. And so after that, he really doesn't like go on no like huge adventures or nothing like that. It's just mostly he worries about what's gonna happen, when he has to defeat the Fire Lord. So he can't sleep before the invasion and stuff. And so he's constantly having nightmares and this and that. It's a really intriguing episode, but once again, it's another filler episode with him. And so then the invasion comes, and he goes to fight the Fire Lord, only to find out he is not there. Instead, they get Azula, and all the time is wasted, and the eclipse is over, and once again, he has failed. This will be the most nagging, recurrent theme with him all season long. And of course, when he fails and everything, and he gets scared, he wants to act silly and goofy. After the invasion, he just wants to play. But Katara and Sokka, they want to get down to business and start planning the next attack and everything. And, it takes Zuko and him learning how to firebend only for him to kind of mature just a little bit. That mature side we saw in season 2 rarely shows up this season. And so, like, when they go to like a play that has to like that deals with like the Avatar journey ever since season 1, he's very ashamed and very embarrassed because of how he's portrayed by a girl and or a woman actually. And not only that, but the ending shows the Fire Lord winning. And this really scares the crap out of him so much that him in the game, minus Zuko, decided, Aang is just gonna fight the Fire Lord after the comet and everything. Only for Zuko to tell him you can't do that because they have no idea he plans on committing genocide towards the entire Earth Kingdom. So Aang is kind of like, crap, what do I do now and everything? Like, I'm still like, a little rusty at firebending and this and that. One interesting thing about him when it comes to firebending is when he started to learn and he went to that temple, this was the most childish I've ever seen him this entire season. He is literally season 1 Aang, and I hate that. But when he learns how to firebend, I've noticed something. He never used it in battle, except for that of the Fire Lord. And that's because he doesn't really have no battles after he learns how to firebend and stuff. After he learns how to firebend, he airbends the fire grenades, and that's about it. He's not in a battle anymore. And it's kind of like the Avatar just isn't the Avatar no more. You really don't see them go on these big battles no more. Now they're individual story arc battles, but he's left completely out. And like the only time you ever really see him fight is when he's training with Zuko and everything. But there's a glooming problem. It just now struck him he's gonna have to kill the Fire Lord, something he does not want to do because he's an air nomad. He's a monk and everything. And they don't kill. They don't even like stepping on grass because it kills that plants and everything. And everybody is telling him, look, you're gonna have to kill this dude and everything if you want to bring peace to the world. But he's all like, no, my religion will not allow me. So it causes a huge argument between the entire group because like he just doesn't want to take a life. And he thinks, oh, maybe if I can put glue on him and make him relive his childhood, the Fire Lord, everything will be better. So in the middle of the night, he gets like in a trance and he swims off to an island. But this island is no ordinary island. It moves on its own. It's from there he speaks to all his past avatars. Well, at least 4 of them and everything. Because he can no longer go into the avatar state. So he's looking for advice. Roku pretty much tells him that if he would have killed his best friend, then the war would have never happened and he still would have been alive. And Aang wouldn't have to deal with all this crap. So he tells him, be decisive and everything. Kiyoshi just kind of like, screw it, kill this dude and let the world be at peace and everything. And I forget the name of the water bending avatar, Beto or something like that. And so basically, that water bending avatar was just loosey goose kind of person. He goes with the flow. He lets everybody solve their own problems and he doesn't interfere in nothing. He just goes and have a good time. And he lost his wife's face as a result of that to Ko. And so he would have been more attentive, he wouldn't have to grieve as much as he does. So then he decides to talk to the female avatar who was an airbender. And we finally get to see a female airbender and stuff. We've seen her in clips and flashbacks, but that's about it. And so, like, she tells him, our religion says one thing, but as the avatar, we must do the other. It's not about us, it's about the entire world. You're gonna have to do what you're gonna, the thing you're gonna have to regret the most in order to bring peace to that of the world. And then all of a sudden, he realizes something. He's going back towards like the island that he first left off, Ember Island. And so when he goes underwater to see what the heck is going on, he sees a giant paw and realizes he is on a giant lion turtle. So he asks the lion turtle for advice. First things first, the lion turtle has been foreshadowed in statues, I think ever since season 2. But we've never really known what the heck it was. And we've never heard anything about lion turtles, if they can even talk and everything. So how the heck does he know it can talk? Not only that, but lion turtles are able to energy bend, which is something nobody knew of. This is a new form of bending that just comes completely out of nowhere. And I am furious about this because they should have left breadcrumbs about like energy bending and that of lion turtles a heck of a lot more than what they did. Energy bending is cool, but it literally just comes out of nowhere at the last like 2 episodes of like the series. And so he touches Aang head and chest, but we don't know what the heck he's doing, but there's a glowing energy coming from him. And so then that episode ends. And we like, what the heck did he do to Aang? What is this he's doing? And then we find out in the battle and everything. So Aang is now ready to fight the Fire Lord, and it's a heck of a battle. He's doing everything he's ever learned to try to take this dude down, but it is to no avail. The Fire Lord is just too strong. And then all of a sudden, when Aang realizes, I can't defeat this dude, he flees and then he hides in a ball of rock. I mean, he is a kid after all. But the Fire Lord is kind of like, man, I ain't got no mercy for you. And he busts open that ball of rock with his fire bending. Aang falls completely back and hits the back where Azula zapped him with lightning. And it's then and there, his avatar state somehow triggered and everything. And as we all know, when he gets triggered into the avatar state, he just loses control. Boy, he went buck wild. He actually learned a little bit of control because his avatar state realized, like, look, I'm about to take your behind out. And I really truly believe the past avatars, when Aang, tapped into the avatar state, I believe they helped take over his body to help, like, open up a can of what from the Fire Lord. This dude was ferocious and everything. He was a savage beast. And the Fire Lord actually got scared and fled for the longest time. But Aang just hunted him down like prey. It was so cool to see. And then he finally got on top of the Fire Lord. And he was about to hit him with every element there was. Until he snapped out of it and realized he just can't do that. He just can't take a life. for Ozai to try to, like, use this opportunity to kill Aang while his back was turned. And then Aang did the coolest thing. He pulled a Toph. He did his whole Daredevil, like, sonic vibration thing to figure out what the Fire Lord was going to do, trap him in rock, and then he energy bent him. And we didn't know what the heck this was going to do because the lion turtle didn't tell us on screen until just now in this voiceover. And, your will has to be unbendable or you will be corrupted. So Aang is blue and the Fire Lord is like orange. But then all of a sudden you see the orange start to take over Aang's body. He is being corrupted. What will happen when you are corrupted? Heck if I know. But then Aang just bust out of it, and then everything went blue, and then boom, the Fire Lord basically passed out and didn't have no bending no more. And Aang let that dude know, I took away your fire bending. I'm like, dude, this is so awesome. And the Fire Lord is legit weak after this. Like, his body is just drained and stuff. Now, we will see something like this in The Legend of Korra because Aang has decided when he gets older, if somebody is a really, really bad threat, he's just going to take away their bending, which will cause problems and stuff years later down the road after he dies. Because some of their descendants will go after, like, who's the next avatar in charge. So after that, him and everybody, like, make peace. Him and Zuko are getting along. He kisses Katara and everything. And it ends all beautifully and everything. But sadly, in The Legend of Korra, we find out that Aang actually died as a young adult. Because he was trapped in the Avatar state for 100 years, that deteriorated his lifespan. And he died either in his late 20s or early mid 30s and stuff. But him and Katara was able to make 3 kids. And so one's a waterbender, the girl, one's a airbender, the boy, and then one has no bending until the harmonics conversion or whatever it's called gave people bending, and all of a sudden there's tons of airbenders now. And so then he has airbending. Personally, I would have made the girl a airbender and the boy a waterbender, but hey, whatever. And so as a fan, all we always wanted to see was adult Aang. And the creators instead gave us The Legend of Korra. Once again, they are still not giving us adult Aang because now they're going to continue 200 years past now with a earthbender who's the avatar that has a twin. We just want adult Aang and adult everybody else. That's all we want. We don't want them in flashbacks. We don't want them in comic book form. We just want a series out of that. However, they're supposed to be making an animated movie with the adult versions. But everybody has now been recast, even though everybody now is an adult. So this sucks because I want to hear the original voice cast. And so after this, the actor who plays Aang, now in season 3, his voice started to get deeper. But after this show, he just disappeared for like nearly 20 years and stuff, and only resurfaced during the pandemic, doing like a Zoom call and everything, where he reunited with the cast. I love this series so much. It was so great and so amazing, so deep, so rich, and just had so much lore to it. And then, of course, we got that M. Night Shyamalan movie that ruined everything. And then we got The Legend of Korra that kind of ruined stuff. And then we got the live action television series that kind of ruined stuff again. And I do fear what the live action series is going to do for the 3rd season. They better energy bend and they better have a lion turtle in that thing. Like, I swear to God, they better have it. But the actor who plays Aang, it's kind of look a little different. He's older now. He's taller. His voice is deeper. He doesn't look like that kid from season 1. And I don't want to see a really tall, deep voice, adult looking Aang in this series, or or an older looking teenager, you know, because the other character is gonna have to age as well. This is the show about kids and teenagers, and now everybody's on the level of adult. And yes, technically, everybody who was in the series are adults playing teenagers, except for the actor who plays Aang. It's just gonna be weird seeing him so tall now with that deep voice. But you know, it is what it is. Happy Asian and Pacific Islander month, everybody. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.